So what if the secret to making huge changes in your life wasn't about some massive, heroic effort? Today, we're jumping into James Clear's Atomic Habits, and it's all built on this really powerful idea that the most incredible results actually come from the tiny, almost invisible choices we make every single day.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to wonder about this? Why does starting a new workout routine feel like pushing a boulder uphill, but, breaking a bad habit like scrolling on your phone late at night feels practically impossible? It's a frustration we all feel, and the answer is actually way simpler than you might think.
See, it turns out most of us are coming at habits from completely the wrong angle. And to see the right way, we're going to look at the unbelievable turnaround of a sports team that went from being a total joke to becoming absolute legends.
Okay, so let's talk about the British cycling team around the early 2000s. And when I say they weren't good, well, that is a massive understatement. For basically 100 years, they were the poster child for mediocrity.
Just try to wrap your head around this level of failure. We're talking nearly a full century of just nothing. They'd won a single Olympic gold medal since 1908. In 110 years, they had 0 Tour de France wins. It got so bad that some of the top bike manufacturers flat out refused to sell them equipment because they didn't want their brand associated with the team. Ouch.
But then, in 2003, this new performance director, a guy named Dave Brailsford, shows up. And he has this kind of radical philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The whole idea was super simple, but wow, was it powerful. He said, let's just break down every single thing that goes into riding a bike, and then let's improve each tiny little piece by just 1%. He was convinced all those little gains would add up to something huge.
And they got obsessed with his 1% idea. I mean, it started with the obvious stuff, right? Like more comfortable bike seats, rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip. But then, it got a little crazy. They brought in a surgeon to teach the riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to avoid getting sick. They tested dozens of massage gels to see which one helped muscles recover fastest. They found the perfect pillow and mattress for each athlete's sleep posture. They even painted the inside of the team truck white just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the finely tuned bikes. Nothing was too small to improve.
So you have to wonder, right? Did all these tiny, almost obsessive-compulsive changes actually work? Well, just 5 years later at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, they didn't just win, they completely dominated. They took home an insane 60% of all the available gold medals in cycling.
And this was no fluke. It wasn't a one-time thing. The next 10 years were just a masterclass. 178 world championships. At the London Olympics, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records, and then won the Tour de France 5 times in 6 years. They went from a laughingstock to an unstoppable force, all thanks to 1% changes.
It is such an amazing story, but it's not magic. It's just math. So let's actually break down why that little 1% improvement is so incredibly powerful. The best way to think about it is this. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. You know how money multiplies with compound interest? Well, the effect of your habits multiplies as you repeat them. One tiny choice today doesn't feel like a big deal, but over months and years, the impact is absolutely massive.
And the math on this is just staggering. If you get just 1% better at something every day for a year, you won't be 365% better, you'll be nearly 37 times better. That is the power of compounding. But you have to be careful, because this sword cuts both ways. Getting 1% worse each day doesn't just set you back a little. It basically wipes you out to 0. It's a huge force for good or for bad.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. This doesn't always feel true, does it? You go to the gym for a week straight, you look in the mirror and nothing's changed. You practice guitar for a few days and you're still not a rock star. So if these small changes are so powerful, why does it always feel like we're stuck in place?
Well, the problem is our expectations. We expect progress to be this nice, straight line. But in reality, the biggest results are almost always delayed. There's this period James Clear calls the valley of disappointment, where you're putting in the work, but it feels like nothing is happening. But here's the key. Your effort isn't being wasted, it's being stored. And then, when you finally break through what he calls the plateau of latent potential, the results explode and seem to come out of nowhere.
So, knowing we have to push through that plateau, what should we be focusing on? This leads us to a really radical idea that pretty much flips everything we've been taught upside down. Forget about your goals. Focus on your systems instead.
So what's the difference? Well, goals are about the result you want to get. A system is the process that leads to that result.
The goal is to win the championship. The system is how your team practices every single day. The goal is to publish a book. The system is your writing schedule that you stick to, no matter what.
And why does this matter so much? Well, because a goals-only mindset is actually full of problems. First of all, winners and losers have the exact same goals. Every team wants to win the championship, so the goal itself isn't what makes the difference. Second, hitting a goal is just a momentary change. You can clean your messy room, that's a goal. But if you don't have a system for staying organized, it's just going to get messy again. Plus, goals kind of postpone your happiness until you hit them, and they can lead to a huge motivation crash once you finally do.
It really all comes down to this one incredibly powerful idea. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Your progress isn't defined by how ambitious you are, it's defined by how good your daily habits are.
So, what if we could go even deeper? It's not just about picking systems over goals. To make habits that actually last a lifetime, we have to understand what's at the very core of our behavior.
And this is where things get really, really interesting. The single most effective way to change your habits for good is not to focus on what you want to achieve. It's to focus on who you wish to become. It is all about your identity.
Think of it like this. There are 3 layers to changing your behavior. On the very outside, you've got your outcomes, your results. A little deeper, you have your processes, your habits and systems. But right at the very center, the core of it all, is your identity, the things you believe about yourself.
Now, most of us try to change from the outside in. We start with an outcome, like, I want to lose 20 pounds. Then we try to build a process around that. But real, lasting change works the other way, from the inside out. You start with your identity. You decide, I am a healthy and active person. And then your actions and your habits start to flow naturally from that core belief.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important takeaway here. It's a total reframing of how we should all be thinking about self-improvement.
Every single action you take is like a vote for the type of person you want to be. The goal isn't just to read one book, it's to become a reader. The goal isn't just to finish a marathon, it's to become a runner. Every time you do the habit, you're building evidence for your new identity.
So in the end, yeah, the most practical way to change who you are is to change what you do. But the deepest, most powerful motivation comes from deciding who you want to be first. So, just for a moment, forget about the outcome and ask yourself this one simple, powerful question. Who do you wish to become?